guys, welcome back to Abundant Grace Homestead. Today we're going to be baking with some of our sourdough starter. We're going to be baking an organic sourdough loaf, and we're also going to be making some pizza dough. One of the things that we do here is we do all of our own home ground flour. So I'll link to some of these things, but we use the Mill 100 for our grinder. It's been working really well for us, and it's quite the workhorse. And then we buy all of our wheat as whole wheat berries in 25 or 50 pound bags, and then we repackage into Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, and that allows us to extend the lifespan of this. And by grinding right when we're going to use it, it allows us to have the most nutrient dense baked goods that we can possibly have. So one of the other things that we do when we're baking here is we use a scale to measure all of our ingredients by weight. It allows for more consistency and allows us to more quickly put all of the ingredients into a mixing bowl and get them mixed, whether it's sourdough or some other kind of baked good. We really like using the scales and weight measurements for everything. And so some of the recipes you'll see posted, they're all in weights, and that's why we do that. So you can see there's the wheat berries with the oxygen absorber inside. This is hard red wheat that we purchased in May of this year. So then we're gonna put that over here in the hopper, like I said, on our Mill 100, and then we're gonna grind it into our mason jar, and then we'll end up weighing out those ingredients and get to making our dough. Then like that, we have a full jar of freshly ground flour. So, and it is very nice, fine flour. The Mill does a great job. Yeah, now we'll get to weighing this out and making some bread. All right, so we have our KitchenAid mixer out here. This is a newer addition to our homestead here. We didn't used to have this. We used to mix with a hand mixer and by hand, which is definitely something you can do. But we also then have some other attachments to this that we'll end up showing you in some other videos. But we have a pasta roller attachment and a pasta cutter. So we get to make sourdough pasta. So we've really enjoyed having this KitchenAid mixer, and it's definitely helped us level it up. You don't have to have that to start. Like I said, you can simply use a hand mixer with some dough hooks or something on it. But we're gonna get started here, and we're gonna weigh out our ingredients. This particular recipe is somewhere around 70 to 75% hydration. It does really well with our home ground whole wheat flours. We do hard red, which is an organic hard red flour, and then we do spelt as well. Contrary to popular belief, spelt is not actually low in gluten. it's simply an ancient grain, and so it is potentially easier to digest, but it's definitely not lower in gluten or gluten-free. It actually works really well in our sourdough. So yeah, this is the best part. We're gonna dump, and we're just watching the scale here, so that we know when we put in enough flour. All right, just that one. So this loaf is 930 grams of flour. So the nice thing about measuring it is that you won't end up with a cup measure that's packed too tightly or not tight enough or whatever. It makes a very consistent amount. So then we've already tested our water, seen that it's warm. It's at 71 degrees, and we're going to add that in. We're adding in 700 grams of water. So again, by adding 700 grams, I can just put it in a container like this, and I can zero out our scale, and then I will simply just add slowly so that I can see that we're adding 700 grams of water here. All right. And then we're going to take our salt. So we buy our salt in bulk, just like our flour. Our salt is actually Redmond's real salt. This is the kosher salt, and this is the fine. We're going to add the fine today. The salt in this sourdough recipe acts as an inhibitor for the fermentation, so it actually slows it down slightly. And the great thing about that is it just, it adds a better flavor to the finished product in the bread. So we're going to add our salt to this, 22 grams. And you can definitely use less salt. The downside to doing that is your fermentation times will be different. So your initial fermentation will be significantly faster. And so, yeah, you'll just have to change up the timing from when you take this and then put it into a banneton and into the fridge. So, all right, so we have that, and then we're going to add in our sourdough starter that we rehydrated, and we're going to put in 93 grams of that. So about 10% of the flour sweet in sourdough starter. All right. So then we're going to put this on our KitchenAid, and we're going to get it all mixed up here. We're going to knead for somewhere between 7 and 10 minutes until the dough is fully incorporated. One of the things I did want to mention is you'll notice the dough looks like it's very wet and very sticky. And part of that is that this is whole grain wheat that's freshly ground, and it will not absorb the water right away. So part of this longer kneading process is actually allowing the water to absorb into it. So don't get excited about it. Don't add extra flour because it will then have too much flour. So we're gonna keep on kneading here. All right, so as you can see, that's fully incorporated, and we have really nice stretch to the dough. It's still pretty sticky, and part of that, like I said, is simply the whole grain organic flours and the fact that they haven't fully absorbed the water yet. But we're gonna take it out of this. We're gonna put it into a bowl and put some plastic wrap on it and set it above the fridge to do its first length of fermentation. And we'll do that now. All right, guys. So here we are about 12 hours later with our sourdough loaves. And as you can see, it's significantly bigger than it was before. It's got a good amount of spring to it. And it's slightly domed over the edges. So we're gonna lightly flour the countertop here, dump it out. We're gonna cut it in half, then we're gonna shape it and then place it into these two bannetons. So there's two ways that these ones can be used, from my understanding. One is you can put the bread right into the bamboo and then cover with this. And the other is that you put the bread into the linen and then cover. We're gonna put some brown rice flour onto the bannetons. Like you can see, there's a little bit in this one. And then we're gonna cover with these. And so that's the method we're gonna use. Flour countertop. Scraper, get that out of there in one piece. And that had some really great rise to it. It feels really good. Again, it's slightly sticky, but it's not too bad. So, and that again is simply the whole grain dough, whole grain flour, and how it absorbs or doesn't absorb. So if you're using some sort of bread flour like King Arthur or something like that, yours may be a slightly different consistency. So we're simply going to just tuck it under like this and just keep tucking a little bit until we see some good stretch on top. And we're going to just keep it around like that. I'm going to come over here and do the same thing on this guy and just sort of tuck around. What that's doing is that's building some tension on the top of that loaf. And then, like I said, we're going to take some brown rice flour that we made, lightly dust these. The reason for the brown rice flour is it doesn't have any gluten, and so that it keeps the bread from getting sticky and actually pulls some moisture off of the surface of the bread, so that it produces a nice hard top, which means then when we cut it tomorrow, it'll produce some really nice designs hopefully for us. So then we'll take these and we will turn them upside down into there so that that seam where we tucked it is there. That'll then allow the sourdough bread to grow around that, and it will come back together and won't be a place where it would split apart. So we will tuck these covers on, and then we will place these into the fridge for the night. And then tomorrow, these should be risen a bunch overnight, and we'll be ready to cut and put in our Dutch ovens to bake. All right, so we are about 14 hours later. Pulled these out of the fridge and have to dump these out and see how they look. So now the one thing is, being in that kind of Banneton, is you will have a little bit of that ridge. If you don't want that, then I'd recommend doing this in either in the linen line, because it tends to have less of that, or some other kind of wood bowl. And you do want the wood, because what it does is it absorbs moisture from this side, and actually makes it so that it holds its shape a little better. So we're going to use our lame, and we're going to cut a nice deep channel across here to allow for some good spring across the middle of that loaf. And then I'm going to just cut in a little wheat pattern across here. I'm not very great on the whole artwork thing. But something like that. You can tell the loaf has a lot more shape to it this morning. It definitely proofed really nicely. So we're going to do the same thing to this guy. Brush off a little bit of that excess rice flour from yesterday. Make a nice deep cut. So you can see that has really nice surface tension to it. It cut really well. You also notice I line my pans with parchment paper. I found that the Wilton parchment paper is ideal because it's rated for 450 degrees. I found that some of the cheaper parchment papers are only rated to 400 degrees. And since we're going to bake at 450, those parchments will end up burning to the bread. And you definitely don't want that. So I also tend to reuse my parchment at least once. So you'll notice this one has some brown. This one's been through the oven once already and hasn't burned. It got a little darker, but this is a brand new piece because the one for that Dutch oven ended up getting a hole in it. So yeah, so we're gonna add a tablespoon of water to the outside of the Dutch oven here. And what that does is that will help us create some steam when we're putting it in the oven, and just give a little extra ability for some rise. So actually, you know what, I might put just a little more water in today. Experiment with a little extra steam and see what happens. So about a tablespoon and a half is what I'm doing today. So, and that's part of the great thing about sourdough is you can experiment. Also, be careful with this because it is a double-sided razor. So, make sure that you always keep a protective cover on that because that is sharp. And then we'll cover this. I usually like to put all of the parchment inside, and that way it keeps it from being exposed to the heat quite as directly. And then, yeah, we'll put these in the oven, and we'll come back when we pull them out. So, all right, see you guys later. All right, guys, welcome back. We've baked our loaves of bread here. Yeah, so being that this is 100% whole wheat, you'll notice it doesn't have quite as much oven spring as, say, some of the some of the channels on mine, and some of that is simply due to the kind of flour that we used. If you're using more of a commercial style bread flour, like a King Arthur or some other sort of organic flour, it may rise differently. So this one has actually a really great representation of the cuts that I made. This one actually did a little better than that one. Yeah, anyways, but they taste really good. They sound really good. So we will look at these when they cool. So we'll cut into one of them in probably an hour or so, and show you what that looks like then. All right. So we're gonna take this loaf. Sounds great. It looks great. We're gonna cut into it. Look at how the crumb developed. And yeah, so there's not crazy big holes, but there is really nice even distribution there. We got good crust, so which is what I like about a rustic loaf, is that we got a really nice crust. So yeah, cut a slice and we'll taste test here. So, it's got a good elasticity. So, yeah, even as dense as it is, it's got a nice spring to it. So, and that's the thing. A lot of people get scared off on sourdough because there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of things that can change. But yeah, essentially you just gotta make some bread and eat it. So, cheers. So it's got great flavor to it. It's got a good crunch. It's got a good sourness from that 14-hour slow ferment in the fridge, but it's not overly sour. If you like your sourdough bread to be more sour, you could do a longer ferment in the fridge. And in that case, I probably would do a little bit less before we put it in the fridge. But yeah, I've heard of people putting loaves in the fridge for, as long as 5 or 6 days because they like it really sour. But yeah, anyways, I'll link to a recipe on our blog, and yeah, I'll see you on the next time. See ya.